So now you know how we act when you guys are on video. Thanks for telling us, guy. Well, good. Well, we go at it, man. I mean, this is the way we do it. This is already Christianity for a reason. You didn't hear the whole thing. Well, welcome. We're going to talk about Islam, but we started talking about Israel because someone had a legitimate question about it. And so George and I don't pull any punches. And so now you know that for all you people out there that criticize that we get along and that we don't get along all the time. We love each other. We fight. No wonder my wife's texting me saying, like, what are you guys doing? You're going to have a kidney stone. And I was like, where can you hear me from? But all that to say is we're really here to talk about Islam. We'll jump back on this question again at the end of this show, because I think it's important, because somebody sent this question, and this is how it started. And we're going to jump into Islam because I'm not going to get distracted. Let me tell you. So somebody put a quote a question about the Epstein file, about Israel, about criticizing. I said, look, those are separate issues. And that's when George and I started talking about the Israel situation pre-show. You can lower that. It's all right.
We got so intense, I forgot to put my earpieces in.
Well, it's intense stuff, man. But I'm going to get just as intense about Islam, even more intense about it. Because we're here to talk about Islam and its takeover and its war on America, on Western civilization, actually. Yep. And it's a war. And I've had discussions with people just today. A friend of mine said, oh, you guys, you bring this fake problem up with Islam. And, oh, yeah, I know Sharia law. And it's almost very dismissive, as if there's not really a concern about Islam. I know Pastor David's here. Poor David got stuck between our normal fights. But well,
I love it.
Well, I mean, it is what it is, brother. Peter and Paul did the same thing.
Totally.
We can read the scriptures and then went at each other. This is how iron sharpens iron. And I want to make him better. He wants to make me better. And I question my opinions. He questions his. And we push each other back and forth. And it's important to do that. So when we face the world out there.
That's exactly right.
I mean, this is where the sparring happens. The fight's out there. The sparring happens here.
I was about to say this would have made a good podcast, but I didn't realize we were on.
Well, I mean, someone's going to get held accountable for this one because we didn't know we were on the show. But
Nico's like, were we on with just a little bit? Well, welcome.
Welcome. Oh, shit. I don't know. Look, I'm going to be the same. It doesn't bother me. I'm like, this is when people say, I can't believe you guys talk to each other like that. That's the way we are. We agree with each other passionately, and we fight other people, and we push back on each other. Is this the first time you've seen us do that?
Live, yeah, yeah. I've seen it on Sidebar, but yeah.
Well, yeah, no, but this is when it's not on. We use language that's even not acceptable there. But let's jump into Islam, because look, David, Pastor David, I'm just so glad that you're here, because not a lot of pastors will do what you do. You're very passionate about your positions. I know you love the Lord. Your boldness in your preaching over the last, 2 years, would you say?
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's just been, I'm so proud of it. I mean, that's a whole different podcast in itself, your journey.
Yeah.
And when you were when you went to New York, and you were with
Carl
Lentz, and what's that? What's the
Hillsong, New York City?
Hillsong, thank you. I was just still distracted about this, but Hillsong, and you really were in a big organization, a big opportunity. You were with a local church here before that. And so you've had a journey of being bolder about your faith, having a hunger to study it. And that led you to this issue with Islam, because you used to avoid this topic like the plague.
Oh, yeah, past. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't claim to be an expert, but I went home. My dad went to heaven in December, and I've got 4 little kids. So my wife and I flew to Scotland, which is where I'm from. And I think that's when it really clicked. I mean, you and I had discussions, heard you guys discuss this before. But when I flew to Scotland and I got into Scotland, we went to the capital, which is Edinburgh, to get our kids settled into the time change before we got into the craziness of what was going to be my father's funeral, and all the family come in and all that stuff. But Nico, George, I was just amazed, like walking the streets of Edinburgh. I am 40 years old, so at 18, I moved here. To go back 22 years later, till this day, my jaw drops at what I saw, because it's not.
You texted me from there.
Yeah, it's not the same country. And
well, in what way? Tell us in what way.
Well, it's not. What you've got is, immigration is a different topic altogether. But as far as the Islamic topic goes, you've got many Muslims moving into Scotland with zero desire to, and I took this on my notes for coming, but zero desire to adapt to the Scottish culture. And it's not, hey, an adaptation we're making. Like, I'm an immigrant, so I'm for good people getting a better opportunity. But what they've done is came in and they are invading. It's an invasion. It's not an adaptation. It's an invasion. And I saw it, and nobody will change my view on that. And I apologize to nobody for believing that way. I believe the Scottish heritage deserve to be preserved. There's so many ways I can go on that.
Every heritage should be preserved, right?
Absolutely. But I would also say that now it's even a step further. The natives, the regular Scottish people, are now, a lot of them, living in fear because of the way these people operate. So if you're speaking to your friends, if I speak in the pastor's world, many know. And I put a post up about Henry Novak, who was a young man who was murdered. Yeah. That wasn't a Muslim who murdered him, it was a Sikh. But many of them are like, man, we agree with your stance on Islam, but if you were here, is what they would say, you wouldn't talk the way you're talking right now. And I'm like, no, we're in the United States. It's making its way here, and we're gonna have a voice. I've just got to the point, Nico, honestly, where and I mean this. It's a big statement, but I mean it, and it's thought out. I'd rather die than be a weak preacher. I'd rather go get a 40-hour job where I can make a whole lot more money than apologize for preaching the truth. So,
well, can I affirm you? But the Scripture holds you accountable.
Absolutely,
God will hold you accountable for not preaching boldly. The full counsel of God, being bold. 2 Timothy 1:7, not having a spirit of timidity, fighting the good fight. Look, I mean, there's intensity, and I think the church lost intensity.
Yeah.
And, George and I obviously haven't, but the church has lost intensity, and it's problem now. We always say, you've heard me say this, and we say this in the men's Bible study all the time. The 11th commandment, it's in Exodus somewhere, is don't be a dick. Yeah, so of course, temper yourself because you want to move the needle. You're trying to persuade people in their hearts and minds by consistent living, but also consistent teaching, preaching, advocacy of the Gospels, and that means you have to study. And so I love that you've, and again, I promise you I'm not being condescending. I'm really trying to affirm you. I've seen it. You've allowed me to walk with you. You've given me permission to speak into your life, and I've seen the boldness. And so I'm so proud to not just call you a brother, but just to call myself a supporter of you, and just as a fan, cheering you on when I go sit in your church and I hear your preaching. It's done gracefully. You're always seeking truth. You're always open for suggestions, and you're asking. But then once you've dug your heels in on Jesus, and I love that in a good way, meaning on His Word, and you're doing your best to properly handle the word of truth. 2 Timothy 2:15.
No, I appreciate that, and I don't take it as condescending in the slightest. I look up to you in so many ways, and the way that you guys lead and what you do. And I think back to what you said. This is not a war on people.
No.
This is a war on a worldview.
Excellent point.
It's a war on a way of living, and it just amazes me. You've got many people who speak up. Let me just I'll throw the ball over here so I don't do all the talking. But it's like social media world. You can see it. You see the same people who, and I don't claim I'm really now digging deep into the topic of Islam. I don't claim to be an expert by any means, but I saw what I saw, and it's lit something within me. But I would say this: you see the same people who are like claiming to be like for females, like promoting the feminist movement, and then you see the same in the same way, standing up and speaking up for Islam, and it blows my mind. It is incredible to me, the lack of maybe research or care, and really what people call love. To be quite honest with you,
well. Not all ideologies are the same. And if you study the history of Islam, and I think Bill Federer does a great job. I shared that video with you guys.
That's incredible.
And then a great video of the history of Islam. I mean, people don't realize this. We've said this on the show many times before. Jordan, Syria, Egypt used to all be Christian. These are all Christian nations, former and more others, that because of a societal jihad, it's not physical all the time, they've taken over. And there's a formula to it. I mean, there's an absolute formula to it. Come in peaceful, get political control, get power. I mean, there's control, power. There's influence, control, and power. And there's a succession to this. And we saw it in Europe. We've seen it all through the Middle East and through the countries that I mentioned before. And it's happening here in this country as well. I mean, from Mamdani to Dearborn, Michigan. And here's the deal. And that's why you'll never hear me talk about, and you've heard me say this, David, I don't talk about Muslims. Because the reason why is because when you say that, people watching are going to say, me included, I know really nice Muslims. I got it.
Totally.
But that's why I talk about Islam. I talk about the ideology. I talk about the hadiths, the sirah, the Quran. I mean, these are their books and their traditions, and their autobiography of Muhammad, and then of course their equivalent of scripture, the Quran, which only makes up about 14%, by the way, of their faith. It's all in the hadiths, and then which includes the Sharia. And so you just have to study these things and understand what they can do and don't do and how they advocate. And then they're not even secret about it. You get these imams out there.
Absolutely.
Once they have control, it's a very different conversation when they're trying to gain influence versus once they have control.
Yeah.
Very different tenor, very different. And again, I don't judge an ideology by its abuse. I judge it by its ideals. So when people say, look at that Christian, what a dickhead, or this guy was this and this person fell, well, yeah, that's a bad agent of Christianity. Let's get into the scriptures. Let's look at Jesus. Let's look at Muhammad. Let's look at the hadiths. Let's look at the Quran and the Sirah, his autobiography. Let's look at the ideals of Islam and how it plays out in these theocratic countries that where Islam controls. I mean, nobody wants and this imbalance of criticism, because the Christian is the bigot, is the homophobe, the transphobe, the misogynist. Have you studied Islam? Have you studied the Sharia? Have you seen the implementation? How many pride parades are in Yemen and Afghanistan? I'll wait. How many free speech marches and protests do you see? How many times do you see a bunch of Islamic people block the street in an Islamic theocracy doing their prayers 5 times a day? Nowhere. Why here? Because they're trying to exact control and they're trying to get political influence. And then bullshit politicians fall for it. And then that's how the control, and then the tolerance for Islam, this obsession with it, and this hatred for Christianity is not. It doesn't make sense to me. And so, Georgia, jump into here too, because I know you have a lot of opinions. You and I have talked about this. It seems like we're talking about it more because it's becoming more and more relevant in our society. I'm David. You've seen it. Other pastors we talk to in our group threads are seeing it. Whether they have the courage to speak up about it, and I understand. It doesn't come without a cost. And so, David, again, I mean, we shouldn't have to make a big deal about a pastor coming in just to talk very objectively and truthfully and openly about a set of ideas that would not is not conducive for a constitutional republic, and to me, not conducive in its true form for freedom, for women, for the LGBT community, which the Christian will try to persuade them and pray for them. The Islamic theocracy would not do that to them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I was going to say there's a major handshake between the rise of totalitarian worldviews in the United States right now and the totalitarianism of Islam. Communism and Islam have a lot in common. And so you're seeing a major handshake right now inside the Democratic Party in particular. And you're seeing a lot of cowardice on the conservative side. Nobody's speaking up, and they're not identifying things for what they are. This is totalitarianism. You have two movements that are coming together and creating a collective. And that's what they have in common. Totalitarian movements have collectivism at the heart of their worldview, which is you don't really get to think what you think and argue. Like what Nico and I were doing, going back and forth, that's beautiful. That's how I see it. It should be beautiful. In the constitutional republic, you should be able to do that and walk away feeling like...
But they did, George, right? In the Continental Congress, we're going to be celebrating 250 years. What did Benjamin Franklin have to do?
No, and it was intense.
I mean, 13 colonies. I'm sorry, George. Don't forget your thought. 13 colonies did this. I mean, fisticuffs. I mean, with even more intense. I mean, because we don't ever get personal with each other. We just push back at each other and hard, as you saw. But it got intense where Benjamin Franklin had to say, "Hey guys, we're gonna take a break.
Yeah.
If we're gonna break away from England, we're gonna take a break." And they prayed and they fasted and they came back together and they did what they did. But go ahead, George. I mean,
and I think it's ironic. So when we get intense and we get in that argumentative stage, I do it because it helps me pursue truth. I don't do it because I'm convinced of it.
Say that one more time. That's important.
I do it, and I take a bullet for this guy. I mean, I love him. I love him. He's my best friend. He's my brother, and I've texted him recently. I've probably texted him multiple times. These things make me better. They make me better because they help me get to the truth faster. They help me dispense with my biases. Everybody has biases. Everybody has blind spots, whether they want to admit it or not. And so when you argue like that, it's very refining. Because you're pushed against a corner, and it's like, do you really believe that? You sure you really believe it? Years ago, Nico says, and I've stolen it many times, I know somebody who looks just like you and sounds just like you, and they had a very different opinion 10 minutes ago. I love that. I love that.
Me too, both of us.
Because this should be, and this is true of any major intense argument, because you think you believe something and then you're under fire and like, maybe I really don't believe that, or maybe I do believe it, but maybe not for the same reasons I thought I believed it. So this is a beautiful experiment we've done here, and then in this wonderful United States for 250 years, and I hope it continues to be preserved. I'm worried
Yes.
that its demise is around the corner. But this is something that Islam doesn't stomach.
No.
Doesn't do.
It is a collectivist worldview. You don't get to be an individual. If you are an individual and you happen to not adopt Islam, and particularly Sharia. Sharia is a collection of all the theological laws of Islam, under which the ideal Islamic community must get under, line up. Now, even in Christian doctrine, we debate doctrine. Christian history has a long and fruitful history of intense debate. If you go back over to church councils from the very beginning, all the way from the Christology of Jesus to various doctrines, from literally the 4th century, ironically under a former pagan in Constantine, these were intense debates. I love the debates between Athanasius and Arius in 325 at the Council of Nicene. That ultimately led to a crystal clear view of the Christology of Jesus, that Jesus isn't just some functional representative of God, but he is ontologically God. This was an intense debate. I mean, the stuff that we're doing here, those are those kinds of debates, and even worse, Islam doesn't stomach that.
Can I pause and ask you a question? Where does that come from in Islam? Like
it comes from the ideal man in Islam. I love the question, because we should pursue Jesus. We are to be refined into the character of Christ. That's ultimately what it is, Romans 8:28, right? Ultimately, that's the goal, that we are refined by the Holy Spirit into looking more and sounding more and thinking more like Jesus. Interestingly, the ideal Muslim should be refined into the character of Muhammad. And so then it's a legitimate question, Nico, to go back and say, well, who was Muhammad? What did he do? And Nico always points out, we actually know a lot.
We know more about him than George
Muhammad.
Washington because of the Sirah. We do, because he was illiterate, so we had scribes that write about him. So the question is, what is the threat of Islam? If we're talking to some people out here, it's like, what are you talking about? Because maybe they're stuck in the, I know a nice Muslim, I know this. What's wrong with their religion? What's wrong with that? Because true Islam is not playing out in America yet. Bill Warner says that there's two Bills. There's Bill Federer and Bill Warner that I like. I like David Wood also. I mean, Sam Shamoun's a little rough on the edges. He's more like that, but he can. I mean, he's very effective in his debates. Nabil Qureshi was wonderful before he passed on. But Bill Warner says there is no radical Islam. I borrowed that from him. There's no radical Islam. There's just Islam. I've added there's militant Islam. There's people that say, I want to follow exactly the Sharia. I want the Hadith and the Sirah and the Quran and understand that. But it is radical. If you study the scriptures, their words, their books, and their ideology, it's radical.
Yeah.
I mean, you steal.
Do you see that important? That you should park there. That's really where people need to go, and they need to just stop and think
And explore.
and just park right there, because that's the distinction. There's the ideal, right, which we would say is the scripture, the highest authority in the life of a Christian, the highest authority in the life of a Muslim is. It's the Quran, but it's the traditions.
Hadiths.
The traditions.
And there's many hadiths.
The hadiths. There's just a handful of authoritative hadiths, but they're not passive. They're not peaceful.
No.
So there's the hadiths, and there's there are positions and opinions that are put out by the 4 Islamic schools of jurisprudence, and they align with Sharia, and so we know a lot about the ideal practice of Islam. We know that, and so. What is the difference between the ideal and what various Muslims are doing? Just like you as a pastor asked the question, here's what the Bible says, and then there's various people in my congregation who kind of live, perhaps varying Christianities, right? Well, that's a legitimate question about Islam too. And I would say this to Nico's point, there is no such thing as moderate Islam. There's no such thing as radical Islam. There's just Islam. And in Islam is inherently militant. And I would point people to perhaps what I think is the best scholar on this. I like scholarship, read scholarship, because all the sources are there, like the original sources, and you can go investigate for yourself. If somebody was to cut a video on that, they'd literally be talking for like 6 weeks. So I would recommend the works of Rodney Stark. He's a former sociologist at Baylor University. And there are 2 books that he wrote, The Victory of Reason, which talks about the Western Christianity path, and then he talks about God's Battalions, a case for the Crusades, interestingly enough. And he goes back over the history, and he talks about 3 aspects of historical Islam. And it's copiously annotated. And what he says is that Islam grew through the ancient world after the death of Muhammad from 632 up until the Crusades, and even beyond, through 3 things: military conquest, political domination, and systematic coercion.
And I've heard you say this before.
So there's no vote. But hey, do you want to accept Muhammad, or do you want to? No, there's no vote.
They're using the same methods. Go, George.
And that hasn't changed. And so Pope Urban II, circa 1096 or so, it was a response to this systematic coercion and political domination across the ancient world from Muhammad's death on. It actually started before Muhammad died. The first caravan assault was in 627. This is how Islam grew, and it became a threat to Christian lands. And so the cries from Christians that had established themselves in the ancient lands in the 11th century had gotten so loud. And this has been systematic. I've been going on for centuries. And it got so loud that he couldn't dismiss them anymore. And that's when there was a crusade response. Now, the fact that there were atrocities in the Crusades,
separate issue.
That's a legitimate issue,
Needs
but
to be
it's
called
also
out.
separate. It isn't like
But
Christians
how many
were
years
sitting
before the
around.
Crusades? From all these atrocities, from
Legit
Islam?
question. About 450 years of political spread and forced coercion. This is just a fact. Period. End story. So there's no such thing as a peaceful Islam. I know peaceful Muslims. Islam would frame them as apostates.
Yes.
As people who have departed from the faith. I'll shut up, but I think that's
No,
important.
there's
What
nothing
you
to
said.
shut up about.
People need to go to there and just park there.
But
There's Islam and
they do. They have to, and this is where you were saying earlier. I think you were alluding to this. The modern women's lib movement, which I believe in biblical womanhood, which is, elevates the woman, right? But the modern will team up with Islam against the Christian conservative, whatever. You're like the trifecta of enemy number 1. You're straight, male, white, and you're a Christian, and with 4. You're like public enemy number 1.
Like a cultural bullseye on his back.
But that's a bullshit standard for what? So we have to look at that. The person that lives the LGBT lifestyle will team up with Islam against the Christian, which makes no sense to me.
No sense.
Because it's go to an Islamic theocratic country and then start your movement there. Why wouldn't you want to spread it across the world? Why just here? Go to these countries and see. You will be handled very differently.
100%.
Here we pray for you. Over there they throw you off a building. People say that, but it's actually true. These are not things I'm making up. And so you have to ask what ideology. So when you look at Muhammad, and we can do a whole show on this, or we can post. Bill Federer does a way better job than I'm going to do. George will do a great job on this too, of the history. And Muhammad, because his parents died young, he was raised by his uncle. He traveled with his uncle. He saw different ideologies. He believed in this worldview that talked about that there's a little bit of truth in everything. And that's why you see Islam early, in the earlier chapters of the Quran, and then the later chapters, there's a difference. And so they have to come up with abrogation,
I think
right?
that's also really important because by the time he began his alleged revelations that became the Quran, the recitation, he was 40.
Yes.
He was 40 years old.
But how long was he into his ministry by that time?
How do you mean?
Well, what I'm saying is because he was married for a while. He started his movement in Mecca, right? And it wasn't very effective. And then once he moved to Medina, you see a whole different Islam.
Yeah, I think you're going to see like a concerted commitment to the fact that maybe, and then his wife, Khadija, I believe, was encouraging him.
She was older than
you really are hearing from Allah. And that was circa 605. He's in a cave. He's hearing voices, et cetera, et cetera.
He thought he was crazy.
You can draw your own conclusions. He even thought he was crazy.
And how do you remember how they tested it? How they tested the spirit? She started undressing, and he didn't see the spirit, so it must be from God. So it's not an inappropriate spirit. If we said that about Christianity, they'd laugh us out of a room.
Yeah, there are a number of representations, but it isn't the kind of documented historical chronology, sort of corroborated by multi-points, geographical, historical points that you have in the Bible. The Bible's, it talks detailed history, it talks detailed culture, it names places and people at specific dates and times in real regions and geographies and so forth. So what you have in the Quran is not history, it's just a bunch of spotty declarations. So the Quran's, it's sort of, it's discombobulated, it's hard to read. I've read it, it's difficult to read. And he's just sort of spouting off. And what I wanted to point out is what you brought forward. It wasn't until later in his life. I mean, he's 40 years of age, and he has been raised in an environment that has been decidedly Jewish and Christian. Yes. And so he grew up in the Quraysh tribe in Saudi Arabia, and it was polytheistic. And the Quraysh was in charge of the Kaaba. The Kaaba is basically a religious center that had some hundreds of gods in there. It's polytheistic. And so he's introduced to Christianity, and it's a clear departure from the polytheism he's grown up in. He's attracted to it. The arguments the Christians made to him, and these were mostly some Catholic sects, and some of them were heretical sects. But the notion of polytheism, the arguments are pretty good. The arguments against polytheism are pretty good, and he bought into those arguments. And so he bought in to monotheism, rejecting polytheism. But he'd never converted to Christianity because he didn't want to lose his connections to the Arab people. So he wanted to keep those traditions. And so he developed this kind of hybridized monotheism. And so all of the gods in this Kaaba were called Allah. And so there was a principal god by the name of Hubal. And so basically what he did, he is assigned this sort of amalgamation highest god to Hubal. And so Allah comes out of that, and he literally created this sort of, as I said, this hybridized foreign religion, the exact opposite of Christianity, because God reached out from the outside to Abraham. Christ came to the people, whereas what he did is he internalized out of himself some hybrid religion. And this is very subjective. It's true. And so if you want to learn what Islam is about, please study the life of Muhammad. All of it. All of it. And so when you talk about coercion, you talk about conquest, that's the life of Muhammad.
And I think I don't know if we can, Nico, or not, but if for the regular listener, who I'm one of the regular listeners to this show, it'd be good if we could get these sources in the chat so people could go and do that research.
We'll have them post, sure.
For the life of Muhammad, it's a textier this big, but it's pretty readable. It's by a guy named A. Guillaume, Gillaume, very copiously, and he goes point by point by point by point. If you want a diary, read it, and it's all there. You should bring up how he started, I think, and then how he ended, because the Quran reads that way. There's the peaceful version, and then there's the
But that's why they have a concept called
leader.
abrogation. So the later chapters abrogate, right? The earlier chapters, because there's inconsistencies. You have a peaceful beginning. Matter of fact, when he first started his movement, they were bowing to Jerusalem for 7 months or however many months. Those 5 times a day, because he was trying to appeal to the people of the book. That's us, Christians and Jews, people of the book, Old and New Testament. And then of course that changed, right? And so do you see this morphine from him trying to spread this religion peacefully to him becoming essentially a warlord?
And they wouldn't dispute that. I mean, this is objective history.
He won some serious battles.
And just some particulars for the audience, from 610 to 622, about 12 years, those are the Meccan years. And those are the earlier chapters in the Quran. By the time you get to Medina, and so they're not growing. They're a religious group in Mecca and just sort of fledgling along. In fact, people are irritated with them. The Quraysh, I'm like, dude, because you're with us, because you've been from us, and we know your uncle, we're going to tolerate you. But it wasn't pretty, and a couple of them got beat up, and on and on. Eventually, they do what's called the hijrah, and they migrate to Medina. They get to Medina circa 622. I think that's the year of the hijrah, the Great Migration. They go to Medina, and it starts the way you're talking about, and eventually, not so. They start seeing that they can grow through violence. You have caravan attacks, and you have coercive techniques, and all of a sudden, lots of booty are coming in.
Well, explain what booty is. Booty doesn't mean booty the way we think. Like
Yeah.
just big booty hoe. I mean, what did booty mean?
Lots of females.
Lots of spoils. Lots. Yeah, not that kind of booty.
Yeah.
But and maybe that too. But lots. They're basically taking the spoils
Right.
of the material goods
Assets,
of the caravans, the merchant caravans that they're assaulting, and there's. From about 622 to about 632, the last 10 years of his life. In fact, if you kind of frame it out, there's a major act of violence by Muslims about every 6 weeks for the last 9 years of his life. That's about how it pans out. This is objective reality. And so the Quran takes that shape. The most militant chapters are the later chapters. Yeah. This is Islamic doctrine, what Nico's saying. This is al-nasikh al-masukh. That's the name of the doctrine. It's the abrogating and the abrogated. The earlier verses are abrogated to the later verses. You want some chapters like that? Chapter 8 and chapter 9. Chapter 9, verse 5, chapter 9, verse 29. This is where you hear people talk, kill the infidels and strike off their fingertips and kill the unbelievers and fight off the unbelievers and go after them because they're declaring unlawful what Allah and His Messenger are declaring lawful, and vice versa. So it's very militant in nature, and they actually lack what's called the Bismillahin declaration of peace. At the top, you see Allah, the Great and the Merciful. That's not there. These are militant declarations on whom? On the unbeliever. So an Islamic person might say, what are you talking about? That has a lot to do with being sinless and being a good Muslim. Yeah, that's not all it has to do with. Part of that sinlessness means retaliating against those who will not submit to Islam. But how do you retaliate? You fight, and it's militant, and you coerce, and you do whatever it takes to create what's called the Dar al-Islam, a world of Islam.
I guess
that's the objective for the United
my
States.
advocacy is to really look at this objectively. And the problem is we look at this tribally because you'll get people in one political party and, oh, you don't like it? Because I don't like you, I like it. That's how Islam grew, actually. That's how they dominated mainly Jewish cultures. Because in certain areas, I think it was Mecca, one of them, right? Mecca had a lot of Jewish influence initially, but they were broken up into just tribes. And they couldn't get along. It's Christians, anybody else, Republican Party, Democrat Party, there's always factions in there, right? And so they said like, oh, Islam's coming in. Oh, you don't like that group? I don't like them either. Go ahead, get them. And oh, you don't like that group? I don't like that. It's like, we're friends, right? No, we're not. Oh shit, what happened? What happened? And then and this is how they grew. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly, so what I try to do, or what I hope to do, what I want to do, and I don't do it very well probably, is get people to look at this ideology, not people, objectively. Meaning without emotion, without your own personal spin or your feelings involved. And let's look at history because we have a plethora. We have so much history, and we have this laboratory of ideas being played out in society in these different Islamic theocracies, these governments that are run by Islam, and you see it. And so that's all I try to do. And so let's don't agree with Islam just because you disagree with me or vice versa. Let's just talk objectively. Because I want this. I want Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and progressives to go back to this, but to talk about American things. Not, to your point, for a foreign culture to come in and to change the American dream, to change the melting pot of ethnicities. Yeah. But there was one... E pluribus unum, right? Out of many, one. Yes. What's the one? The one is the culture of America. This life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and pursuit. There is no true life. You're not living for yourself. There's not liberty in Islam. In true militant Islam, there's not.
That's right.
And happiness, well, depends on what you consider happiness is. But you see this, and you can look at Iran before 1979 and after, and the women and their freedoms, and how it's been taken away when this theocratic mindset came in through the IRGC.
And just,
there's more.
That's an important point, which is that
there's a lot of examples.
The pursuit of happiness. Jefferson, I think, explained that concept very well. We tend to read it, I think, wrongly, because it's not about self-gratification, Nico. It's about me being happy. No, a person is truly happy and blessed, as the Bible would say it, when they have the ability to express the totality of who they are. That's what that means. The pursuit of happiness is really the pursuit of your full expression of who God made you to be. There's a philosophical concept behind that leads to political reality. And I like the word ideology. It's an important word, because, and you keep going back to politics. The greatest political statement was the Great Commission from Jesus.
It's a political statement.
It's decidedly political. So you have ideas. You have that become values.
I'll explain it in a second.
We would call those values politics. Those ideas become values, and those values are politics. And then when you put legs on them, they become policy. Now, we're looking at America and we're saying, what kind of policy do we want to govern the country?
Well, we can't assume, because we have these conversations all the time, and I want you to keep going down your thought process, but we can't assume when we say the word politic that Matthew 28:19, the last thing Jesus told us as Christ followers, he could have said anything, and he said the Great Commission, Matthew 20, go into all nations, making disciples, students of all men and women, teaching them to obey all that I've commanded, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So politico comes from that word. Politics comes from that word. Our working definition, and think about what that means, a set of ideas advocated by a group of people to affect the lives of others. We're the only dumbasses in this country that think about Republican, Democrat. But politics is politics. There's politics in a church. There's politics in a mosque. There's politics in a school. There's politics in government. There's politics in your place of business or whatever. There's in your home. Yeah. There's a set of ideas advocated by a group of people to affect the lives of others.
And listen to that. It's a political statement.
That's a political statement.
It's an mission statement, really. And then it's like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, we know. Read the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 5:3-7:27. Jesus gave an idea of the principles that guide or should guide a true disciple of Christ. And he actually goes and contrasts true disciples from fake-ass disciples. And so now you have a mission statement. He defined what a true disciple looks like. Now he gives that disciple a mission statement. And then you have the New Testament thereafter. And what is that? How to implement that. So you have letters to the church that says, here's how you live a good and godly Christian life. Here's how you actualize the mission statement. Now, I challenge anybody who thinks there's all kinds of linearity between Christianity and Islam. Where in any letter do you see any coercion or any call to coercion of anyone who's not a believer?
Is there anything in the Quran that would say to love the non-Muslim?
No.
No, because Allah doesn't like sinners. That's important. Yeah. Allah doesn't care for sinners. He doesn't. And in fact, his view of judgment in the last day is rather capricious. Allah, and this is why we go back, the character, I always joke around, but I'm not really joking. There seems to be very little daylight between the character of Muhammad and the character of Allah. And so there's a capriciousness to it. It's like I say this today, but tomorrow I might say that. Remember, Allah is called the great deceiver.
That's what he's called.
Chapter 3, verse 54.
Taqiyya is a concept that they try to defend that, George, but taqiyya is the idea that you can deceive or lie to people to further the Islamic movement. Now
explain that though, because I think this has been a conversation that I've had. How do they try to defend it?
Well, I mean, the apologists, they will defend it. Give them their.
So I think that you got to go back. So Nico and I have been kind of parked in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th centuries and so forth, and then you actually get to the modern world, like how we got here. Because in the 20th century, the Ottoman Empire, which was the latest really sort of representation of an organized Islamic state in the Ottoman Empire, which really died off in 1924 in the aftermath of World War I. So the Ottoman Empire fell apart. And then in literally a couple of years later, a few years, I think it was in 1928, you had the formation of the Muslim Brotherhood. Ever hear of the Muslim Brotherhood? Okay, they are really the sort of the philosophical branch of Hamas. Yeah. So the Muslim Brotherhood said, well, obviously militancy isn't going to work. It's kind of like what communism did in the aftermath of the fall of the Berlin Wall. They're not going to conquer America with guns and tanks, obviously. So how are we going to do this? And it was brilliant, and it's been brilliant, and that's been the plan. The plan has been, let's go into Western culture and gut the culture. Let's go in and take and lay siege over the institutions. We are going to use them against them. So when we're talking about cultural jihad, that's what we mean. Jihad, of course, meaning holy war. The Muslim apologist, I think, rather foolishly says, well, that's an internal struggle.
Right.
And the reality is that's clearly, and I mean this, clearly not it. Wherever jihad is mentioned in the traditional books, at least in the context of Sharia, it's about dominating those who are not on board. That's a fact of life. The most authoritative hadiths, the Sahih al-Muslim and the Sahih al-Bukhari, every context of jihad is rarely, and I mean rarely, in the context of some sort of personal struggle with Allah to be a better Muslim. I'm not saying that that's not all the case. I'm saying that the dominant view and practice of jihad is a militant posture. And so jihad in the Western culture, really since 1928, has been to gut our institutions, to gut our own laws, to gut our own Bill of Rights, religious protection.
Yeah, of course.
The idea of the freedom of religious expression in the public square.
To destroy the country, right?
And
Ironically.
you've seen these destructions throughout the Western culture, and predominantly in the UK. And tell people what the United Kingdom is, because I think geography might be a little lacking in America here about what the UK is. It's really 4 entities, right?
Scotland, England, Northern Ireland, and Wales.
There it is.
But they won't. That will, without a miracle and move of God, the UK will never go back to what it was.
God,
ever.
that's so sad.
It will
Should
never
we
go
be
back.
looking at the UK of what? And I don't mean to lead you. If you disagree,
Why do you
just
say
stop me.
that?
It's so far gone, Nico. Like, it is. When I say jaw dropping at the beginning, it is so far different to the country that I left as an 18. So you're talking 22 years is not that long a time. I mean, in the grand scheme of things.
No,
so for it to change so quickly literally blew my mind. And the British people, they are now feeling kind of like overtaken, and they're not heard. And that's where I was going to get to is like Prince Charles. I don't know if you've been aware of that. Like, changed the statement of faith. Like, I mean, it is
absurd.
It is unbelievable what is happening.
Talk about that, please, because I want people to understand. He's the head of the Anglican Church, right?
Church
the Church
of England.
Got it.
And
therefore,
defender of all. He's now saying he's a defender of all faiths. I mean,
Not just Christianity.
not just
but
Christianity.
he's supposed to be the defender of the faith, of
Absolutely.
the Christian, the unabashed defender of the Christian
Which,
faith.
when he took the throne, whatever you want to call it,
Yes.
is what he said he would do.
So he's adopted multiculturalism.
Yeah, 100%.
I was going to ask, do you? I don't mean to lead you, and if you disagree, please stop me and correct me.
Are you
I don't
allowed?
wanna-
Are you allowed to disagree on this?
I don't. Please, are you kidding me?
You want to get us to disagree again?
Do you
Don
think
King?
that we ought to look at the United Kingdom and conceive that may come to the United States?
Oh yeah, I think the only difference between the United Kingdom and this is why I'm so passionate about it. I've got 4 kids, and somebody wrote to me recently, said, "Hey, you're not even American. Don't basically you don't have a vote in this." And I said, "I've got 4 kids who grew up in this country, so whether you like it or not, I'll have a voice in it." And that's my worry, is that the next generation will live in the world that we leave them.
Yes.
And I've got 4 kids, so I think the only difference in them growing up here in Texas and growing up in Scotland is the size. So it may take a little bit longer because of the United States, the size of the United States compared to the United Kingdom. But it's happened so quickly that I think we're well on the road to that. I think if we don't see it, I cannot unsee what I saw.
Is it the increasing censorship, the stuff that we read about, increasing censorship and coercion and maybe harassment of people, native Scots?
I mean, I don't even know that I could explain it enough. Like it is so overwhelming. I think number one, it's like it's almost like United States to me. It's almost apologizing for being a Christian. I think people don't understand you protect what you love. So it's like if you've got any kind of fear, you're now labeled a racist, you're labeled Islamophobic. It's like, no, like I just want to friggin' that's why I lock my door.
What's the greatest fear in your view that's moving them to do that? Because Scots are, I don't know, they're not exactly wallflowers.
I think you can't. What do you? This is what I was going to ask, and I think it will hopefully come to answer your question is how do you resist it? So I don't know that they know how to resist it because the government is allowing so many people to come in. I mean, if you look at it, George, and I did very basic research on this, the average or the regular person who's worked their life in the UK gets £12,500, I believe, in retirement. We call it a pension in Scotland. Mm-hmm. On the taxpayer for the immigrant coming into the UK is around £41,000 a year. Well, the math ain't mathing. So somebody's given their life to this country and they're getting, my mom is there getting $12,500 a year after working in a care home, lifting old people, taking care of, fellow citizens, loving people. And then somebody comes in illegally and is, whatever way they seek asylum or whatever.
And then fully stay subsidized.
Yeah, they're getting hotels, they're getting food, so that's a different argument altogether, but it's such a big problem. And I'm trying to give context because people can take that out of context, say you're against immigration. And I make no apologies for saying I think we should vet everybody who comes into the country.
Yeah.
But
Well, why wouldn't you? We vet
I know.
people that come into our home.
I know, but people.
I mean, the
well,
hypocrisy is
yeah,
insane to me.
You're an immigrant.
100%.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm an immigrant.
Are you a citizen yet?
No, green card. I need to be.
I'm gonna
but-
call the ICE real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yep.
Can you do the 100
Yeah.
number?
Green card holder.
No.
Yeah.
You're legit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
I
just joking.
got
Well,
it
this
through,
guy's you're passionate. Your family's passionate about it because you guys came over
Yeah,
from,
and
South Africa,
but-
not South Africa, from Angola.
From Angola, Central West Africa, in the
But
aftermath
that's
of Civil War.
the point that I'm making, though. So many people are coming. I think they've got so many fights. They're like, what do we do? So here's the question: is
Yeah.
what is the threat of Islam,
That's the question.
and how do we resist it?
Okay, I'll answer that a little bit, and then I want to talk about because you mentioned communism and Islam and using similar tactics. So I want to talk about Yuri
Collectivism.
Yuri Bezmenov.
You don't get to be an
You know what? We've brought him up many
Sure.
times before.
You don't get to be an individual.
That's right. Well, let's talk about it now then, because I don't remember what I was going to say. So the force. I mean, what were you saying before?
What is the threat of Islam?
Oh,
Like,
thank you. Okay, so thank you for that.
But let me just clarify, Nico. To the average person that I'm speaking to, and I'm not saying I'm saying average as far as knowledge on Islam. Like, what's the big deal?
Islam, number one, is an imperialistic ideology, meaning that they're trying to establish one caliphate, one government under one caliph, and they live in peace with you as long as you submit to them. That's exactly what it means, Islam. So, and then when they implement Sharia, there's no freedom in that. The exchange that we had, the disagreement, protests, even though I obviously I'm a Christ follower, I don't support the LGBT movement per se, but I love people in the LGBT community, and I pray for them, and I'm going to be there for them. I'm going to protect them, defend them, stand in front of them, not let anybody hurt them. That's not the way it is over there. You can't have a protest. You can't have a march. You can't have an opinion. You can't disagree. You can't criticize the government. None of that. None of that works. And then if you're a woman, and this is under Sharia, you are chattel. You're chattel. You're your property. A woman doesn't have the right to vote. A woman can't inherit property. A woman cannot divorce a man unilaterally. A woman cannot have multiple husbands. He can have multiple wives. A woman cannot testify on her own rape trial. If she's accusing someone of sexual assault, she has to have the witnesses of two what? Men. And she can't testify. So her opinion is nothing. And then not to mention, you know why they cover up the burqas now? Is because they're tempting the men. And how dare you tempt them? And if you tempt me and then I take advantage of you, or I take what's mine, or my urges, well, that's on you. And then they're the ones punished for it. It's absolutely illogical.
It's presented as modesty, but it's not. It's more than
not modesty.
It's the literally erasing of the entire
Women
person.
look. I mean, and this is the problem with our society. I mean, we should be able to acknowledge the beauty of a woman without objectifying her and without saying that sexualizing her. I mean, and that's obviously when you're younger, you don't have as much control, and you're full of hormones and all the other bullshit. But all I'm saying is, they say I can't control myself because there's no set of moral standards because a woman's value is lower. There's not an imago Dei on a woman, an image bearer. In the Christian, women are image bearers. I mean, and so when you talk about true misogyny, I mean, objectively, again, this is not. I'm just studying ideas. Ideas have consequences.
Yeah.
And not all ideas are the same. So you have this imperialistic mindset.
Yeah.
There's not peaceful coexistence. That's why countries like Japan, Poland, other countries are saying, screw this shit. You're gone. We're not going to do this anymore. There's a lot of countries, and it shouldn't have to get that way because so many cultures have been destroyed because of it. Because there's no peaceful existence with actual, true Islam. There's not.
And to your point, I was in Poland last year. In the comparison between Poland and the UK.
I mean, this is where it is. And so to George's point earlier, when communism fell, they said, well, shit, we can't go back trying to conquer people with force anymore. So Yuri Bezmenov, and there's a famous, maybe some of the people that have watched have seen it, famous interview in, ironically, 1984, right? He gives this, and he talks about
I believe he's a former state operative in a Russian state operative, KGB.
Okay, so this knows what he's talking about. He talks about the 4 stages to ideological subversion, to a civil war with ideas. And there's 4 stages. One of them is demoralization. You work very hard to demoralize, take away the moral compass of a society. Back then, he used to say it takes 15 to 20 years. And in 1984, if you find, it's on YouTube, you can find the interview. He says in 1984 that America was satisfactorily demoralized. Back then. Where the hell do you think we are now? Number 2, destabilization. He says it usually takes 2 to 5 years. Economy, foreign relations, defense systems. In today's world, you can destabilize in minutes, in hours, in a day. I mean, forget about 2 to 5 years. But then there's there's demoralization. So now you've kind of tenderized the meat, so to speak, and then you destabilize it, and then there has to be a crisis. I mean, it can take up to only 6 weeks back then. It can take 6 minutes today. So then now there's a crisis. So you demoralize, you destabilize, and then now you have a crisis. And then what do you have? Then you have normalization. We heard this during different seasons we've been through lately in the last 6 years. That's just the new normal.
Yeah.
Because now you're demoralized, you're destabilized, there's a crisis, big government comes in to satisfy that crisis, and now this is just the new normal, and we're going to take care of things from now on out. Now that's how communism worked. Islam is using a very similar game plan.
Because it's totalitarian.
Explain what that means, George, so people understand.
Totalitarian movements, for instance, George Orwell's 1984 is a totalitarian novel. It's a political system that seems to attempts to totally subjugate the human being. It's a control of your entire faculties, the way you think. It's thought control, literally down to your thoughts. And so it creates a framework by which you can be controlled, like all of you, everything you think, not just what you do, but everything that you think. It's totalitarian. It's not just tyrannical, it's just utterly consuming. And so it's a totalitarian view because there is no individualism. That's the point. That's why I use the word collectivism, because and communism is collectivist. The state makes the call. You are a ward of the state. You deviate from that, and there are serious consequences. And those consequences, I mean, and there have been consequences to people who refuse to comply, and those consequences are as follows: you can either die, you can pay a punitive tax,
Jizya, right?
a jizya, or it's either death or a tax, or there's some sort of act in between that's punitive in nature.
Or you can conform.
You can always convert.
Convert.
Yeah, of course. But in terms of very good point. But in terms of consequences, you might end up incarcerated. You may not die, but you may end up incarcerated or beaten.
And
or
I understand
in some way.
both what you're saying, but to the person that is having this conversation in the local church, what is they're going to ask this question? What is my in many different forms? What is my everyday worry? You know, so I've got the big picture, but it's like, hey, I get what you're saying. I get that it's...
Your everyday worry is Dearborn, Michigan. So for me, that's not an American city anymore. It's just not. I mean, they do the talk about voluntarily praying with your coach after the football game, and that made it to the Supreme Court. But who's suing Dearborn, Michigan for them doing the morning chant, the Islamic chant in the morning? And they're doing it in New York also. Where are the lawsuits?
Yeah.
I mean, the what?
The Adan.
The Hadan. Yeah. I mean, where are the lawsuits? Zero. This obsession with Islam, is insane to me.
Yeah.
This ire and this almost disgust and disdain for Christianity, because Christianity says you can't stay the same. Islam says the same thing. Christianity says it needs to be voluntary because Jesus really wants a relationship with you. Islam says you have no choice. Live at peace with me my way. It's not really peace, by the way, so it's all about the definitions. And so the thing about Islam is it doesn't stay idle. Islam will never take, this is 5% of our society. No, they want 95. They want 100% of the society because it's imperialistic in nature. One caliphate under one caliph.
And so again, historically,
that's the truth.
Last major representation of the closest thing to a global caliphate. I mean, this isn't theoretical. It's actually in our modern history was the Ottoman Empire. It spanned 3 continents.
Yep.
Okay, so we know that that's an entity that's recent, and so the Muslim Brotherhood wanted to bring in the new era of a new caliphate, but it wasn't going to happen through military conquest anymore. So now it's political domination. And so that's what's happened, going into Western countries to lay hold of institutions, from academic institutions to churches, even to media and government, and using our laws again for the exact opposite purpose. So the Bill of Rights prevents the government from reprising someone for holding a particular religious belief. And they're using that now, interestingly enough, to make it so that anyone but them can say what they believe. So if a Christian has an issue with a Muslim, then he's being a bigot or he's being racist, if anybody, Christian or not. Yeah. And that's what's happening. I think that's what's happening in the UK.
Oh, 100%.
And so
I do think people had enough, though. They've really had enough. I think it's on the brink.
Well, I'm worried about that. I'm worried that that's going to the communist playbook and the totalitarian playbook is you build up the friction, and eventually people have had enough, and then they take the law in their own hands.
It's what's happening now.
And then then you get people get killed or whatever, and then those things are magnified by the media as some sort of racist retaliation, this underlying racism and bigotry. And now the government steps in to fix the problem, right? Which is bullshit, because the real problem is all of the really their inaction, listening to their people over the decades about all of the loss of liberty and loss of freedom.
That is what you're saying right now is the UK. So if you watch videos in Edinburgh, like literally, I could send you videos of people like they've had enough. So if which, by the way, I'm not saying is the way to go, but if that is not the way to go, how does the regular person resist
Educate
this?
yourself. Educate yourself and gird yourself up with courage. Because it doesn't matter if you agree and you educate. Let's say you educate yourself about the reality of true militant traditional Islam if it's implemented, and understanding that by 2050, the studies show that Islam will take over as the world leading religion. 2050.
In terms of the number of Muslims per capita.
Yeah, Islamic people in per capita.
What does that look like in America? Do you know?
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends. Now, if that happens, now if they're all isolated in Islamic countries and you want to live, why don't they stay there? Why are they coming here? I mean, and they're not coming here to assimilate. They're coming here to dominate. There's a difference. Now, they don't get there right away. It's peaceful. It's this. They get political influence. And then you'll see the rhetoric change completely when they're in control and in power. Look what's happened in the UK. They didn't always talk like that.
Look what's happened in New York.
But these are showings of dominance. They don't do this when they block a street, when they go out there chanting. That doesn't happen in an Islamic country. Why? If that's part of their culture and their religion, why isn't it happening in an Islamic country? It's a legitimate question. Democrats and Republicans in this country should be asking the same question.
I think that there's some ambiguity there, because people will look at Saudi Arabia or they'll look at Jordan and they'll see, or Dubai, and they'll look. I mean, these are Islamic state nations, and it's like, it seems pretty orderly. It seems really advanced and cultured, and the reality is that the leaders of these nations, I think, realize that you can't have an Al Qaeda running your government.
Yes.
You can't have a Hamas running your government. You can't have an IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard from Iran. You can't have that. So interestingly enough, Christians can't go out into the street and proselytize openly. You're not allowed to do that.
Where?
In Saudi Arabia.
Okay, yeah.
But you also can't kill the Christian.
Yeah.
So you realize we're not doing caveman Islam. We're not going to go dog eat dog. That's not going to work for us here. Okay, we need to have some semblance of order. See, even they recognize. Now, what's interesting is that the Al Qaeda and the Islamic Jihad and the Hamas, right, and the various terroristic sects that we've talked about, certainly the Iranian mullahs, that's Islam. Yes, Hezbollah.
That is militant traditional Islam.
That's actually Islam. And if you go to Iraq and you look at where ISIS set up shop in Syria, look at, for the short term that they were there, look at how they ran their culture.
Yes.
We saw videos of beheadings. And the jizya was
You
common.
can find them.
They brought back dimitude, second-class citizens, the payment of jizya. So where Islam is actually implemented per Sharia.
By its scriptures.
Right. So I'm just trying to distinguish.
No, it's good.
Because people look and they say, Nico, what are you talking about?
It sounds like Tucker Carlson when he says that stupid shit. It's like, I've gone to Dubai, and it sounds like, wow, you can leave your keys out. You can do this. You can do that. That's not Islam, Tucker.
No, bro.
I mean, that guy drives me absolute batshit crazy, because I don't understand what his motive is, because he's too smart. He's too intelligent to be that ignorant. And we got to shelf our feelings, and just, because the Islamic person has zero issue. The apologists and the imams, zero issue telling you exactly what they're trying to do. They, in the middle of New York, Manhattan, you can find the videos on social media. We're not going to stop until Sharia is in every household in America. The Sharia will be study Sharia. If you have a daughter, then guess what? Under Sharia, traditional militant Sharia, her clitoris is mutilated because she's not supposed to enjoy sex. She's only there for procreation. They can have 4 wives. They can have multiple. They're going to outpopulate us. And they tell you that. We're going to outpopulate you. Got it. I get it. We're only having 1.4, which I don't know how the hell you have that, kids. And they're having, on average, 4 kids. On average. Now, us 3 have broke the molds because we each have, you have 4 too, right? We each have 4. So, but that's not the average in America.
Yeah.
And so what I guess
fact.
That's a fact.
That's a fact. And because some of these Islamic State nations choose to kind of pick and choose to remain somewhat orderly. Again, Saudi Arabia, you go there as David Cameron, you can't do what you're doing here.
No.
You cannot practice your faith in public.
Nope.
You can practice it, just do it in your kitchen.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So they're not going to come kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, you try that with the Taliban, where Islam's actually being practiced, and that's a different story. So I just think these distinctions are important so people don't get confused.
But the problem is, David, Pastor, is that we've set up this bullshit rules of engagement that if you disagree with Islam or that you're an Islamophobe, you're whatever, transphobe, you're a homophobe. But it's not, there's no Christian phobes. There's no Jesus phobes. You can call Jesus whatever you want. You can say whatever you want about Christianity, and there's no phobe or obia behind it. Why have we allowed that?
Completely.
Because the imams and the Islamic movement, that's not as strong theoretically as the Christian movement, at least in numbers, has more political influence than the Christian.
But it is.
I mean,
and there's an Islamophobia because it's deemed to be irrational fear, but there's no Christian phobia because all fear and anger towards
It's
Christians is
rational.
rational.
Yeah.
I mean,
But is it fear led? Because here's the thing: is like the local church, and I'm not talking about refuge. I'm talking about that I lead. I'm talking about the church as a whole.
The Big C church.
You see it in on social media, like speaking out against. And I'm not trying to open up anything here, but like
okay.
what is happening in Gaza, but like we'll say nothing on the Christians being killed in Nigeria. Like so
nothing.
where has the voice? Where has it gone?
Well, when you combine ignorance with fear, that's a horrible combination. And you have a fertile ground for an ideological subversion. That's part of the demoralization and destabilization of the four stages of ideological subversion. Think about that. So if we're ignorant, and I'm ignorant meaning not knowing, I'm not being disrespectful. I'm ignorant to a lot of things, but not this. Because I've been forced, because I've been in political circles and arenas, and I've seen it play out in justice systems and different things, and I'm more in tune that way. And I see where this is going because I'm not stupid. I got eyeballs, and I can take the time of looking at other cultures lost. And then I can look at history. I mean, this is our resident historian, but anybody can know history and see where this is going. And then we look at the numbers and the census and see where it's going to be in 2050, and we say, okay, is that what you want? Do you want? And then someone says, oh, you're overplaying it. Well, then do me a favor, and for 6 months, not even forever, send your daughter, your wife, and just go to an Islamic theocracy, a government, an Islamic government. Go to Yemen, go to one of these African nations where there is
go to Sudan.
Go to Sudan, where they have zero respect of life, where there is not an imago Dei in you, where they don't think there's value in you, especially if you're an outsider and one of us, and if you're a kafir, which you're a non-believer. I mean, go.
Yeah, go do selfies in Nigeria.
Yes.
100%.
So that's all I'm saying. So what my hope and prayer and advocacy is that the church would lead, like the bride of Christ would lead and lead in educating themselves, educating the congregations, but then encouraging true dialogue, conversations. They have to be, George and I are George and I. I mean, I'll get like that with somebody if they want to, but this is the way we do it.
If they want to.
I mean, this is what we do. We don't do it every time we talk. We agree.
Yeah.
I don't know, 85% of the time, George? Maybe 90?
Yeah, probably 90.
Probably 90% of the time?
We agree on the huge things of life.
I mean, but the 5 or 10%, we obviously do this. But I mean, but that's okay. We're gonna hug each other, love
Do you
each
agree
other.
on due process?
Huh?
No.
You're a pastor.
Yeah,
You're
man, I'm
sowing
just-
division
Just
among
asking. Just asking.
for a friend.
Yes, sir. That's right. Yeah.
I like it. I love it. No, but this makes us better. This is what Paul and Peter did. This is what we need to do. And what the problem is we're not taught how to disagree.
I agree.
And now this is brotherly disagreement. I don't start this way with people, and George and I usually rev up this way, and then we get there pretty quick because we know each other. But because we just like to cut through the bullshit. We're like, let's just get to where we need to get so we can really
No, it
disagree.
makes sense. It makes
but,
sense.
But to anybody else, it's a progression of disagreement, and then you meet them where they're at and have debate. We've got to learn to debate. We've got to learn to talk. We've got to learn to be comfortable in uncomfortable circumstances, and we're not. We're addicted to comfort. I don't know where it happened. I don't know what happened, but at some point, the church and Americans got addicted to comfort and safety.
Well, you said something that I think the local church has got, and I'll murder it. You can come back and say exactly what you said, but is we really did ourselves a disservice when we stopped talking about politics and religion.
Yes.
Like it was and it's led to a lot of weakness, a lot of conversation. Like it's something that I think we've got to get back to. George, I want to speak to what Nico said though. I think for the local pastor, like what you just shared, like I sat here, I know we're recording, but I feel like I'm just in the middle of a conversation. Like educating pastors like myself on the history of this religion is so key.
Nico and I, if I may, on that point, like what would we do today? Like where would you start as a pastor? Maybe I'm kind of leading the question here. I think you're pregnant with that question. When this really started in 2015, we started seeing this mass migration from North African countries going into Europe, and we're like, this can't be true. And I was getting feedback from Portugal that no, this is legit. And I was texting Nico, and he's like, yeah, I'm seeing this. It's crazy. And so we really started getting into Islam, and we did a couple of presentations, and we started with, here are the theological differences between Christianity and Islam. We started there because we wanted to define where this is coming from.
And why was that important, George? Because the Islamic apologist will tell you, because it happened to me before I educated myself, Nico, Allah just means God. Well, our God is Yahweh. That's a small g God. Their God is Hubal, as he gave you the history of it. It's not our God. He goes, Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael. That's it. So, Islam is from the Ishmaelites, which was not a God-ordained relationship. I mean, obviously Hagar and Abraham went out and wanted to do it himself, and Sarah and all that. We weren't patient for God. And so that's where they start. And they say, it's really the same. Well, no, because either God is bipolar or they're different gods. And one of them is not real.
It's exactly what
Because the God of Islam doesn't want a personal relationship with you.
That's right.
Indiscriminately, he can change his mind at the last minute. You never know if you're in his good graces. No one died for your sins. Your obedience, it might not be good enough, but you better do it anyway. I mean, and then Muhammad is this perfect prophet with no messianic prophecies in millennia, like with Jesus. I mean, you have nothing. You just have a guy who was, I'm not being disrespectful, who was illiterate, who was raised by his uncle, who had all these different ideas because he was exposed to a polytheistic mindset, took his hodgepodge of gumbo soup of ideas, and that's why there's this inconsistency in the Quran, by the way.
And it's admitted by the Quran.
Absolutely.
In the 9th chapter, specifically in verse 29, it's actually presented that way. They are to fight, again, as I mentioned earlier, they are to fight individuals who have declared lawful what Allah and His Messenger have declared unlawful. And then it says these are people who have abandoned the religion of truth, which is Islam. And who are the people who have abandoned the religion of truth? The people of the book. Who are the people of the book? Jews and Christians. So Islam sees itself as the true manifestation of the true God in the world. And so what Jews and Christians did is they corrupted. So you've heard the term Abrahamic religions. The Abrahamic religions, that's why they say, oh, it's all the same. Because of Abraham and Ishmael, there's a version of the Bible that they've created. Here's the problem. I always when I engage with a couple of Islamic scholars. When? Yeah, like the 7th century.
That's right.
That's when. And so and a lot of this was co-opted. And so when people look at it, there seems to be some overlap. Well, there is overlap.
At the beginning.
There is. But then it gets really far and it gets totally contorted. And you're like, the description of Jesus is not what I'm accustomed to. And what's with the violent language against the people of the book? Well, the deal is, this is a corrupted religion by a corrupted people.
Although Jesus was born of a virgin.
And Jesus is subjugated to Muhammad. He's a prophet.
He's a Messiah.
But he's not at the same status. In a sense, he's part of the corruption as well. And so, you read it and you're like, you end up with a very different presentation of it. And so you just have to understand, you have to spend the time to study it. Otherwise, it's going to seem really convincing at 35,000 feet. Yeah. And so I think talking about what are those theological differences, what's the difference between Allah and Yahweh? And let the Quran speak for itself. Right, and you look at the life of Muhammad and what he was advocating in everyday life, and then you look at the life of Jesus and what he was advocating, and then you look now therefore, how shall we live? What did Islam do after Muhammad? What did it accomplish? How did it accomplish? Well, let's look, and so one for one, and people say, I get it. These are not even close to being the same thing. But everything comes from theology. You know that. whatever your theology is, it forms your worldview, and then your conduct follows. And so you could do that analysis with Islam side by side with Christianity. You're going to end up with very different enchiladas, man.
Yeah, and I think it's exactly what they do, is what you're saying. I think it's vital. I mean, my son was at private soccer lessons the other day, group of like 6, maybe a month ago, in a... I ended up in the conversation with a Muslim, and he was, I think I text you, but he was trying to convince me that Sharia law is a good thing for our nation. And
Think about that. Here's a guy in our country that is his desire, because it has to be, is to supplement, is to replace the Constitution with Sharia law.
Yeah.
And so in 2015, when George was talking about, we're looking at Europe and Germany and all this other stuff, and now look at Germany.
Greece.
I was the district attorney here, 15, 16, 17, 18. And I was dealing as the DA here with Irving, Texas, where a city council almost approved a separate Sharia court back in 15. You can Google this and find this out. And so what that means is the Sharia would control. So if you're an Islamic person and you believe in this and you're a part of this religion or this culture, then the Sharia rules. If there's a disagreement, Sharia. If there's going to be some type of discipline, it's Sharia, not the Constitution. And so you would be subverted out of, and that's just completely unacceptable. You can stay back in your country and do that. So think about that. Why are you coming to another country and not assimilating to that country unless you're trying to dominate and take over that country?
And to make the natives of that country second-class citizens.
Which is the UK.
So which is unfortunate. But think about it, you're at a soccer game, and it was a respectful conversation for now, but he's trying to convince you. I wish I was there. I wish I was that Sharia is good for this country. Let's see how that plays out to our LGBT brothers and sisters, that they are my brother and sister in a country, and I want to continue to engage with them, protect them. They have a right to live that lifestyle. There's consequences to it, but the Christian believes there's consequences, but you have the freedom to do that. And I would stand in front of the LGBT against the Islamist, the militant Islamist, to defend them. Even though I know that my faith doesn't support their lifestyle, but their life is valuable because my worldview tells me they're image bearers. They're image bearers that they don't understand what God thinks of them, and they're living their own life in defiance. I get that. I understand the theological argument from the Christian, but I'm still, because Jesus died for them. So my Savior hung on a cross naked for them, for my stupid ass before I gave my life to Christ. For the Islamic person, by the way, for all of them. So as a Christian, I'm standing in front of them. I'm going to stand in front of the LGBT. I'm going to stand in front of women. I'm going to stand in front of anybody from the Islamists to not let them be dominated or controlled or harmed by them. That's the Christian mindset. And so what I encourage people, David, Pastor, is that I pray and wish that the church would rise up, truly rise up. And pastors like you, take the time to educate yourself. Because the more educated you are, the bolder you become in your advocacy. Because, knowledge is power, they say, right? And you're powerful in a conversation when you have knowledge about it. And then wisdom is the practical side of problem solving, is with knowledge plus understanding. But to think that you had a conversation with someone that truly was trying to convince a Christian pastor with a green card, soon to be an American. I'm not calling nice, don't worry.
The good Norton Goss will get me in.
We'll get you. We'll get you. We're going to get into immigration just for you.
Straight face.
Well, I'm just saying that the Sharia law was beneficial to this whole country. What does that mean? He wants Sharia law to rule this country.
Oh, 100%. He didn't deny it.
Listen,
This is my point. They don't even deny it.
No, listen to the irony. He wants an environment dominated by a law that would never permit you to have the very conversation you're having then.
Yes.
100%. He literally
That's
told...
true.
I think I told you that in that conversation. We literally had a conversation because I explained what I've explained to you regarding the UK and how they've came in, changed the culture, all that. He literally told me the Quran... Remember, I think I told you this. The Quran said, in which I've researched and yet to find, that the Muslim who goes to the foreign country should adapt to the culture of that land. To which I can't find it. If you can find it, I would love to know.
You're not going to find it
in research. I can't find it.
You won't find it in context.
Right.
You won't find it in context.
As a strategic maneuver, sure. And think about it. It's not like they have a choice. The Constitution still governs, right? The Constitution still governs. But they're using the Constitution well to slowly get away from the Constitution.
Well, they've done it heck of fast in the UK. I'll tell you that.
Well, but the UK was fertile. UK was fertile. Think about the UK. Think about the churches. You can look on social media and see a church in these in Ireland burning. Churches are just burning. And these Christian Catholic churches are just burning. And at some point, people are going to get fed up. And I don't want that.
It's not some point. It's honestly, Nico, it's there.
I know, Dad. I know.
I think people are worried that this becomes some big onslaught, where you're targeting Muslims. I just want to say again, this is not about Muslims.
No.
I know people, and I'll say it over and over and over again. I know people whom I consider friends, people I have a lot of respect for, who are Muslims.
That's right.
And I think nothing but pleasant, warm thoughts toward them. And I love them. I mean, as a Christian, I'm to love everybody. Right, but most people I don't like.
I think
I'm supposed to love everybody.
I think it's valid that you say that though, because I think that is where people go. Is they try to make it like you're a hateful person when it's. We literally have this conversation. There's Muslims that live in our neighborhood.
Yes,
and because it's such a big topic of my kids over here in videos now, and I'm doing research. They literally like, Dad, can you believe it? The soccer ball went on the street, and the Muslim she kicked it back to me, and I'm like, yeah. I have to literally have the conversation. We're not against them.
Sure. No.
Jesus died for them, loves them like he loves me and you.
Absolutely.
It's the way, it's the theology, it's the
It's
world
this ideology.
ideology.
Think
of
about
it.
culture. What does culture mean? The way we do things. They want the culture to reflect Sharia. Your acquaintance told you that. I challenge people to study Sharia. I challenge the progressive to study Sharia. I challenge the atheist to study Sharia. Because the way that the atheist rails against Christianity and criticizes Christianity, they will not be able to do that to Islam.
Yeah.
I promise you. And Bill Maher has clear mind on that. Bill Maher criticizes Christianity, but he goes, when it comes to Christianity and Islam, there ain't no choice. I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah.
And so I've always been I've always liked Bill Maher. I have, because he encourages conversation. I disagree with him on most of his points, not all of them, but a lot. But he encourages, and he is very cordial, respectful, heated. Not like this heated, because he's not known like we enjoy. But he has heated, pressing conversations, but always respectful.
Yeah.
That's what we need to get back to. And we're not taught how to disagree. We're not taught how to defend.
Yeah.
We don't even know what we believe. And we've talked about that in the church. And so I guess my push as we wrap up, we've already gone over, but my push as we wrap up, and we can talk about this over and over again. If there's any comments that we need to address, we're happy to do that real quick on the end, maybe like rapid fire, because I wanted to do that, but we just got caught up in this conversation. But I really pray and hope, and I want to do my part and our part, to encourage people of different political tribes to come together and have an honest conversation, not because our side resists this, or your side is friendly to that because you resist me later. But let's talk about this, because if you want to be able to resist me and me resist you, then we need to know the truth about this mindset, this ideology that if it takes over, we will not be able to do that anymore, and we won't have this country. And so we're going to celebrate next week 250 years of this wonderful experiment called the United States of America. Whether you like it or not you, Pastor, but
Greatest
people.
country in the world, by the way.
Well, for now, it is. I don't think it's great, but it's the best. I don't think this country is great. I don't. Because I just don't. I want it to be great. I don't know if it was ever great. I'm open to that discussion, but it's not great to me. But it's the best out there. And I want to preserve it. And this experiment was the idea of free thought, free speech, have a mind that you can dream big, go out there and have opportunity, equal opportunity for all. Not equity, equal opportunity. And you work hard, and you bring consistency, you bring innovation, and you can go out there and you can do anything that God says you can do.
Which is why I would argue back it's great. There's so much.
It's the best. Because let me tell you why it's not. Because it's not just a definition thing, maybe.
This is semantics.
This is semantics. Yeah, it really is semantics.
You're saying it's not great. It's just the greatest.
Fair enough. There you go. I think that's
there
the
we
way.
go.
That's the way. I think we can agree on that.
We'll agree on that.
It's the greatest, but it's not great.
Because we need to do better.
Yes.
Always.
Great
Much
is
better. Much
great
better.
is a 99 to 100.
Right.
We don't have a 99 to 100, but it's the greatest. So it's a 80 something or whatever in my mind. But it needs to be preserved. And so we have this experiment where 13 colonies came together, and if you look at their constitutions, overtly Christian. The Christian ideology, without pushing Jesus on you as Savior, has shaped Western culture. It just has. I mean, if you sit there and talk to the atheist and you go through the 10 Commandments, I can point the 10 Commandments into the penal code. Every penal code in the 50 unions, the 50 states in this country. I can point the 10 Commandments and how you are blessed by the adherence to the 10 Commandments. You're blessed by it. You just are. And so that's not what this ideology that is working to take over everywhere it goes.
Yes.
And that's why I'll leave it at this. I keep saying I'm going to leave it at this, and I know we have a question to answer, but this is why Ben Carson got his balls busted when he was running for president.
Yeah.
And he said, he said Muslim. I would never say it that way. He said a Muslim cannot be president. And they said, you're a racist, you're this. And then he's not a very dynamic speaker, and he's kind of calm. But he was right. Theoretically, he was right. Because the Islamic person that adheres to Islam cannot pledge allegiance to anything other than Sharia and the Hadiths and the Quran. So to promise and take an oath to preserve and protect. When I was district attorney, if you're a judge, if you're any public figure, you take this oath to preserve and to protect what? The Constitution. Islam is coming to take over and to substitute the Constitution. So it was which one here? Pretty intense for sure. What are we talking about? Yes, I had Adolf fan Davida in the room since I walked in the fire. Haha, damn my wife. It was silent for a while, only showing you guys talk, and then when it opened up in rapid fire, Connor, thank you guys. Had to tell my friend they really like each other. Mr. Brent, we don't. We love each other. Pastor David, Alamo Talk. We missed you this weekend, brother. It appears MAGA and Islam might be comparable in their. Oh, my brother, my dear. I mean, I know Alamo Talk's real name. I've had lunch with him. I'm a huge fan of his. Yep. He's got a wonderful heart. I enjoyed breaking bread and fellowship with him. My brother, you are so wrong. This is the tribalistic mindset. MAGA, whatever you think that means to you, and Islam are nothing alike. It just shows that let's have another lunch so we can talk about that.
I'd like to leave him with a question.
Sure.
Maybe he can answer on sidebar. Please visit us, man. We've missed you. Why is it that every Muslim politician that's come to power in the last 2 to 3 years has come to power under the quote-unquote Democrat socialist platform? Where's MAGA in all this? I haven't seen a single Muslim. Point. I'm just curious. I haven't seen a single Muslim say, man, I'm really on board with MAGA here. Yeah. Not one. So I don't know. It's just a legitimate question, a good start.
Yeah, it is, man. But Alamo Talk is up, man. I'm just a big fan. I love his questions. I love the dialogue, and iron sharpens iron.
He's been a friend of the show for a long time.
He's been a friend of the show for a long time. Both shows.
What's his real name?
I'm not going to tell you. Attorney-client privilege. But let me tell you this. Why did you subject yourself to this shit tonight? What is wrong with you?
I want to be, I told you this on text. I think it's a big deal.
I was talking about subject yourself to us. Not Islam.
I enjoy that. I'm here for that all day.
I know, bro.
I'll be over here with the coffee and the phone, and you guys going at it,
recording,
putting it live. But I think I want to be part of the conversation. I really am genuinely concerned for my 4 kids who are 8, 5, 4, and 10 months, and I'm concerned for the nation they're going to grow up in, and I want to know, I want to learn, and I want to be a voice, and I've got a real concern, and I'll say it one more time, I cannot unsee what I saw in Scotland in December, in January, so I don't want it in the United States.
Well, you can always go Braveheart, get the skirt on, and get your ass back there and fight.
Hey, I'll do it in Texas, but not in Scotland. I ain't going home. This is the greatest country in the world.
Hey, man, look at you. I love it.
Come on,
man, brother, I love you.
I'm
honored to call you my brother. Thank you for putting up with us and to be on the show. And look, I hope that other pastors can see you and see your humility, because you're saying, like, man, I need to do better. And look, a lot of pastors don't know about this. And I'm not saying that to cut them down. They're just not forced to, because they get in their bubble and they're focused on this. When outside will come in and mess with your bubble eventually.
No, I genuinely love and respect both of you, and I think thank you. I think it's worth saying thank you for taking time, like, just to speak into so many pastors' lives. And I think when you see the intensity, and I don't know, I'll watch it back online. I don't know what it looks like online. I think anybody who gets to know you guys know that you're so passionate about the gospel and pastors and local churches and genuinely good people, and I'm just honored to be around you and have a conversation.
Well, David, that means a lot to me. You know my story. I mean, I was on the road to hell. After my brother was murdered, I was angry at the world. I was angry at God. I held him in contempt, but because I didn't have a relationship with him, I didn't understand his character and his wisdom, and so I didn't have the balls to tell him, even though he knew. So I took it out on everybody else. And I really should be in prison or in a hole. My mindset, the way it was. And then the Lord stepped in. People were praying for me. The Lord directed me. I just got fed up. I tapped out, and I said, "Look, I'm gonna study Christianity, not the way I grew up, but I'm gonna push back." I mean, I went into Christianity angry. I really did because there was Christians that I didn't like.
I want to
It
hear
pissed me
about how
off.
you met Jesus. I've never heard, like, not right now, obviously, because we went so long, but I want to hear about that.
Yeah, it was a realization. It wasn't like a moment for me. I think I shared with you before, but I made this commitment and I did this evidentiary study and I said, shit, this stuff is really true. I mean, I was told what I believed, but if you're told what you believe, you don't really believe it.
Yeah.
And then I came to this realization, like I had to contend with how persuaded I was by the historical Yeshua, Jesus, and then the consistency of Scripture when it's properly held and studied. And so then and then I just went on this journey of pursuing Jesus, and he's not hard to find when you're pursuing him, by the way. And then he brought Davi in my life, and she was just a game changer for me. I married up my wife, and I don't. Sometimes I don't. I mean, she's just a sweet soul. Way too good for me in the sense of the fact that where I was going, and then she just kind of caught me on the tail end. I mean, when we got married, I'll just say this story, and I guess because we're approaching our 20th anniversary this month.
Congratulations.
And 20 years, wow. And so we go to get married. I get back. We didn't go. I still owe her a honeymoon. We never went on a honeymoon because I had to get back to San Antonio to drive to Huntsville and witness the execution of my brother's murder. And she walked with me through all that.
What year was that? Like,
well, we've been married 20 years. Do the math. 2006. Yeah. And so it was intense. She walked with me through that because you relive it. I mean, I still wasn't. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. I was in a very different place. I was walking with Christ. I was pursuing him still, but I wasn't where I'm at now, obviously. But I still wasn't out of the tunnel. So she was very patient with me, loved me through it all. Was very gracious. Never. I mean, I never directed it to her. She just saw it, the explosiveness and the anger and this is like 2 on the Richter scale for me because this is a loving conversation. It wasn't. I got into situations where it wasn't loving and it was very crazy. But I'm in love with Jesus. I've seen when people have a true interaction with Jesus Christ, the living God, the historical first century Jew. I've seen the transformation in people's lives. I'm talking about people in Mexican mafia, banditos, people that were violent, people that they would have, before they would have shaken your hand, they would have slit your throat. And then they fall in love with this first century Jew and the beauty in their eyes and the tenderness in their heart. Now, there's still wild men inside, but it's tamed, it's meekness, it's controlled by the Holy Spirit. I've seen complete transformations when everything changes. You cannot stay the same if you truly understand who Jesus Christ is and you say yes to him.
Amen.
You can't. There's nothing that can stay the same.
Fact.
I'm so passionate about that because I've seen it play out in the experiment called the justice system, the social experiment called the justice system. And so I'm gonna spend my every day on earth as the Lord leads and tolerates me, trying to direct people to Christ in a very real, practical way.
well, I think one of the greatest things that you offer is your passion. And I think if you say that, 2006, you were before you met Jesus, Davi, you were which Davi the Hood is a good human being, by the way. But I think is now using it the way you use it, I think it's magnetic. So thank you.
Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Thanks, guys, for tolerating us. Shit, I'm way over, but this is how we're going to do it from now on. We'll just, as the Lord leads us and as you want conversations. Thanks for tolerating us. By the way, we don't like each other. We love each other. So don't freak out. We're going to have to, next time we get bamboozled over here, someone's going to have to be held accountable. But it is what it is. David, thank you very much. God
Thanks
bless
for
you
having
guys.
me. God bless
have
you.
a wonderful
Good to see
week,
you, brother.
And happy 4th.
Yes.
Celebrate the birthday of this experiment. It's a beautiful thing. God bless you guys. Bye-bye.